Listen closely, because I started speaking only after the lights learned my name. If your bulbs buzz like wasps and the air tastes like a cold battery, leave the room. I didn't, and now every reflection argues back. Do you remember the first night a hallway stretched longer than it looked? I stepped toward a door that refused its own distance, watched dust hang in a shape that almost reached for me, and felt the floor tilt as if the house had been turned by a slow, invisible hand. The world has seams. They look like cracks in paint, like spider webs in glass, like the breath you can't call your own frosting the inside of the window. Cross them, and your shadow grows teeth. I'm telling you this now because some of us returned, and some of us did not, and the ones who came back left a damp print that never dries. We rewound the tape to where it started, back to wood-paneled dens and television snow whispering between channels. The texture of the age lived in hum and grain. Compact discs still a rumor, synthesizers breathing through cheap speakers, a neon mall sign juddering over a shuttered fountain. A smell of carpet shampoo and stale popcorn clung to glass storefronts, while beyond the parking lot, black trees hemmed in a sleeping town. Those culverts under the road made their own weather. Warm air vented in steady exhales from the old lab on the hill, the one with the chain link that sang in the wind. We told each other ghost stories in basements lit by green computer monitors, the kind where power strips hissed and dust burned on hot circuits. We rolled dice in circles, pretended monsters had rules, and called it bravery. Places birthed the legend, not the other way around. The quarry where fog pooled at dawn felt like a throat clearing. A radio tower clicked and pinged at odd hours, as if announcing departures no one scheduled. Roller rinks hummed under the weight of loops that never ended. By midnight, the mirrored ball looked like a pale moon with a rash of silver sores. In the disused wing of the hospital, paint curled up like dead leaves, and the elevators refused certain floors, even though the buttons still worked. At the family video store, rows of tapes smelled of plastic and somebody else's living room, and every case had a thumbnail smear at the same corner, a fingerprint pointing you toward a door you'd swear wasn't there yesterday. We felt watched, but by what? Stories latched onto that feeling, gave it teeth and a face. The other side took shape in analog textures, scan lines, pinging radiators, cold tile under socks, the burn of the ozone when a static shock kisses your knuckle. Stare long enough at the shimmer where light goes wrong, and the shimmer stares back. Some testimonies arrived as if pried up with a crowbar. A boy who worked the late shift at the supermarket walked into freezer mist and came out with frost in his eyebrows and July heat behind him. He described aisles that doubled, then tripled, each shelf holding the same 6 cans that rotated labels when he blinked. Doors didn't open, they receded. When he finally reached the loading dock, air lay over the concrete like a thick plastic sheet. He pushed. Something on the other side pushed back with careful fingers. He swore he smelled copper pennies and wet dirt, and when he looked down at his hands, they had hairline cracks along the knuckles like crazed porcelain. He left the job, but he never put milk on the top shelf again. Said it made the carton tilt in his peripheral vision, like it wanted to slide into a space 1 inch left of ours. Another account came from a dispatcher whose headset hissed with calls she could hear, but not trace. Voices arrived as fragments. A girl describing static footsteps, an old man counting backward while water dripped near his mouthpiece, a child whispering a name that didn't belong to anyone registered in the county. Between the voices lay a throb that made her feelings ache. She started to dream in fluorescent light, hallways with scuffed floors that sloped gently upward in the wrong direction, desks fused to linoleum by dark resin. On her 5th night of this, the fluorescent hum followed her home. Lamps thrummed at a frequency that made her want to grind her molars to powder. She unplugged everything and sat in the darkness. The room breathed twice after she stopped. A woman I met on a park bench repeated her story with a voice like wind through a bottle. She had gone to find a runaway dog beneath the freeway, where the pillars kept their own calendar of mildew. Her flashlight didn't fail so much as shift. The beam smeared as if it had hit warm glass. Shapes rearranged into something less than familiar. Graffiti scraped itself backward. Traffic noise combed into a call she knew was not for her. The stink of urine and rain became new and metallic. When she turned around, the chain-link fence wore different padlocks, older ones with rusted brass bellies. The dog stood at the mouth of a culvert, its ears perfectly still. It watched her without blinking, then walked into blackness as if crossing a field. She went 10 steps after it. Years later, she still dried her feet carefully, between each toe, even when she swore she hadn't stepped in water. You can talk about monsters like they're myths, but the teeth leave real marks. The petal-mouthed hunter gets the headlines, a body that opens like a blood-stained flower and hears with a head that forgets the idea of eyes. Those who have seen its silhouette say it moves as if pulled by a wire through the spine. It isn't the only thing there. Some shapes exist as weather rather than bodies, a towering lattice of black dust that learns the shape of the room and then keeps it, even after you leave. Threads that worm down vents and return wet. Fine ash that falls indoors, tasting of penny dust and old meat. A friend of mine worked grounds at the middle school and found a nest inside rolled gym mats, a dark mucus with bones arranged in spirals, finger bones from something that had too many joints. Other sightings fit a different pattern. Hunters reported deer with antlers like branching coral, soft and pale as if grown under a stone. Their tracks moved forward and backward in the same 10 feet. Dogs disappeared, and once came back with their hair lying flat in the wrong direction, as though they had been smoothed by a hand made of wind. A shape the height of a telephone pole leaned over a culvert and examined its own reflection in a skin of oil, then unfolded itself into smoke thin as tape hiss. On video, these things refuse clean capture. Watch frame by frame and you see a long arm where there wasn't one, a mouth in the wrong place, leaves bending away from nothing at chest height. Audio distorts. Flies go silent. People swear the room cools 3 degrees. Legends do what they always do. They build human bones into their architecture. A man in a mechanic's bay heard tapping beneath the floor grates, lifted them to find vines that were not vines, cords with pores like the inside of lungs, pulsing once every 7 seconds. Fishermen on the reservoir told of a curtain of filament that drifted under the boat, fine as spider silk, trailing milky jelly that stung through denim. It tasted sweet when it reached the tongue, a sweetness that smelled faintly of basements and molding bread. Do you think names keep them at bay? Detergent doesn't wash out the smear they leave. Salt circles don't work on something that doesn't recognize your geometry. The overlap has grown bolder. Wiring hums with the wrong rhythm, and digital clocks slip a minute, then give it back like an apology. Payphones that should have died years ago ring and ring until someone answers, and a voice on the other end asks if the floor is wet. Birds change course mid-flight and head toward fluorescent-lit box stores at 3 in the morning, huddling along the signage until daylight peels them away. A supermarket freezer yields fog that smells like wet leaves and gravestones. Mail arrives with postmarks from dates that have not happened yet, ink already smudged by fingers colder than your own. People find their kitchens with furniture moved 2 inches to the left, the kind of distance that trips you at night. Openings present in wrong places. The elevator in the county office opens to a corridor that ends in a wall of breathing drywall you cannot focus on. A walk-in at an old diner holds racks of cabbage and a draft that comes from a seam at the back, where someone knocked in Morse decades ago and still hasn't stopped. Kids dare each other to go through storm drains, and one of them comes out with a pocket full of coins that have no currency, stamped with a profile whose face you cannot agree upon. Meteorologists stop smiling for a beat while explaining thin lines on radar that move like worms under skin. Radio hosts cut to static and forget entire segments. A bruise blooms on the ceiling above the bed and leaks a thin tea-colored drip that tastes like a word you almost remember. We gather fragments, but never the whole shape. Scientists take samples that wriggle with strands of something between plant and nerve. Priests lose track of their prayers mid-sentence and finish with the wrong names. County clerks misfile the same document over and over because the paper resists the folder as if slicked with spit. Photographers catch orbs that look like bubbles until one of them bursts, splashing a spiral that burns a fingerprint onto the lens. A kid in a knit cap keeps a notebook of streetlights that pop when he walks underneath, little detonations that he maps in ballpoint stars. Every map looks like a mouth if you tilt your head and squint. We stand at that thin place and pretend we control the questions. The truth is, we've been answered more than we like to admit. If you've heard their claws on the other side of drywall, keep your face inches back. Plaster flakes carry splinters of something that remembers your scent. If your bathtub drain bellows once like a tuba from downstairs, leave the curtain open. If your hands smell like pennies after turning off a lamp, don't lick your finger to check the bulb. When pigeons fall silent and the power grid exhales, sit still and count to 9, then count again. Will the dark copy of our town, with its breath like cold bread and its sky that shivers, ever let slip the pattern we've been learning to fear? We can ask, but asking pulls. I'm saying this as someone who leaned too close to the seam and came back with a whisper stitched into my sleeve. It wakes when my apartment goes still and the radiator knocks out a heartbeat the building doesn't own. Keep your doors honest. Keep your floor dry. Watch the mirrors for fog that isn't yours. If the house sighs and the light hum starts to bloom, do not answer the phone. When the mouth on the line says your name with your own voice, make no sound at all.